Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome to another Eternal Top Decks video series here for EternalTitans.com. Today I got something a little surprising and unexpected for you guys, at least it was for me, which is an update to my long forgotten Big Combrei V2, or rather a new take on Vodacombo. The lines kind of blur these days. So I just decided to do it as an update to Big Combrei, because these days Vodacombo potentially would look very close to Big Combrei. There's not really much of a difference. They're probably not even both existing as independent decks anymore anyway. So call it what you want. It's a Big Combrei / Vodacombo deck. And yeah, I'll tell you in a moment how this happened. Okay, so this is the deck. Basically I was, I think, like rank 12 or rank 10 on ladder and was wanting to try Vodacombo for a couple days already and kind of forgot to do it. So I figured I'll put together a list and see how I like it, since Merchant obviously adds a lot to the deck. It provides early defense, it provides acceleration and consistency, so there are a lot of great things this adds to the deck, and wanted to see yeah, if this could work. And then I just started playing and I kept winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. And for those who caught my stream last night, I was rank 5 and grinding for rank 1. The highest I got was rank 2 for some time, and then hit a bit of a snag again, and by the end I was around rank 4 again, I think. And currently I'm rank 3 or 4 depending on whether or not someone passed me since I stopped playing. But I was rank 3 when I finished playing and haven't checked my rank since. Anyway, the current stats that I have with the deck are 46-23 out of 69 total games that I played with the deck, which is an exact 66.666 win rate. So basically exactly 2/3 of the game, which is super impressive, and actually roughly how well I did with the Big Combrei deck last time I recorded it. So, and I also didn't expect a whole lot back then, so there seems to be a pattern here that people should go back to these kinds of archetypes and give them a try, because in the right kind of circumstances or with like great new tools, these decks actually perform really, really well, even now without the old Protect, which was one of the main reasons why the old Big Combrei deck kind of fell out of favor, my old version, because it was heavily relying on Protect to not get tempoed out. But so far this deck did just fine without the anti-tempo blowout protection of Protect. Okay, so let's dive into the deck list, because there's a lot to talk about. This is going to be one of those long deck techs again, so sit down and yeah, learn all about this deck. But I think it is totally worth it, because then you'll really understand the ins and outs, especially because there's potentially probably still some room for tuning, since I have only played limited amounts with the deck and the list is probably not 100% perfectly tuned yet. Alright, so let's talk about the units first. We have for Initiative of the Sands. This has just been pretty great, making the deck a lot faster. It helps you jump past the 2-drop slot, which has a lot of fragile units, which can be very important, both on the play and on the draw against opposing teachers. Dropping a 4 health unit on turn 2 is really, really good. Teacher can be quite annoying for the deck. Then there are 4 Desert Marshals. They have been Vanquishes for most of the time that I played the deck, but Vanquish is very hit or miss. It's either pretty great or very useless, and also even when it's great, like just when it's hitting big guys for cheap, it's still not that important. And Desert Marshal does multiple things. It is a great way to deal with opposing teachers that doesn't lose to their removal, because you just play it on your turn, silence it, do it on your turn, so they cannot stand together if they are Combrei Alessi, Combrei killers, for example. And then you can just take 3, which is fine. Like the attack damage from teacher out of the teacher decks is usually not what is causing you the most trouble. It's being hit by weights, because weights completely screws over this deck. And yeah, then there are just like a lot of utility. It helps against killer attacks from the Alessi deck and Carnosaur decks and stuff like that, which is also pretty important because you don't have a way to stop these, and they can sometimes take out key units like Marshal Ironthorn, or try to trade with an Ascendant, or simply just do big Alessi attacks on your your game-winning threats, where having Marshal is great. Also, Marshal Silence being really good against Alessis and Wandering Wisps and Awakened Students and all that stuff, where Vanquish can be good but isn't necessarily good, partially because by the time you can vanquish them, they often set up a sort of unity with Spellcraft or a stand together to blow you out, making it a lot harder to vanquish them later, but silencing them right away before they become a threat usually works because they don't have their shields up yet. So that's also pretty relevant. And yeah, it also helps against flyers, also flyers that you can't vanquish, like Enforcers, Pacifiers, Commandos, all that stuff. All these like 3 attack, 3 strengths flyers, where vanquish doesn't do anything, and that can be quite problematic for the deck. Or say small Icaria, Valkyrie Captain, and so on. It shuts down Bullet Shaper. It just does a lot of stuff. And yeah, it's just better than Enforcer in this deck because the utility of Ambush and costing 1 less are much more valuable than the Enforcer in this deck, because Enforcer doesn't help you against Teacher, and also the double Justice on 3 can be a bit tricky sometimes. The deck is not that well set up for turn 3 double Justice the way it's built right now. This also has been Teacher for a brief moment. The problem with Teacher in this deck, also people have been asking about Teacher instead of Scribe, is simply Teacher is a very bad top deck in this deck. The deck is very poorly set up sorry, very poorly set up to make its Teacher connect. So if your opponent plays blockers for your Teacher is just gonna attack and trade. If you're on the draw, it's even worse, because then there's all these Auralian merchants and stuff, so your Teacher is just the 2-cost 3/3 that doesn't do anything relevant, and that's not really what a deck like this wants. Even against opposing Teachers, it's kind of worse than Temple Scribe and Marshal. Marshal because it reliably answers Teacher, and worse than Scribe for the very simple reason that most Teacher decks play a lot of cheap removal to back up their Teachers. Torches, Purifies, Killer Effects, Permafrosts, Suffocates, Annihilates, Equivocates. They usually have 6, 7, 8 ways to make their Teacher connect. So if you play your Teacher into their Teacher to block, what's gonna happen is they just use one of these cheap removals on it and hit you. So if you have Desert Marshal there, their Teacher is silenced, then they don't even want to use removal on your Marshal, which is fine. So you're just taking 3, which is not the end of the world. Especially because from turn 3 on you drop units with 4+ health that just stall their Teacher anyway. And with Temple Scribe you have the same scenario as with Teacher, except if you play a Scribe, it replaces itself and draws you a card. And then if they have removal, they need to waste a good removal spell on a Temple Scribe to make their Teacher connect. So that's still better than them using a removal on a Teacher 1-for-1. So in this case they basically have to 0-for-1 themselves by getting rid of the Scribe. The only downside is that against Xenon killers, Scribe can also be answered by Varus Favor, where Teacher couldn't. But other than that, Teacher is just not doing a whole lot. And yeah, in top deck scenarios, Marshal and Scribe provide a lot more late game impact or utility, where Teacher is just a usually blank 2-cost 3/3. Just not really worth it. Doesn't add anything to the deck, and even against like reactive decks, it's not great because they have to build their decks with Teacher in mind, so they usually have like 8 answers to a turn 2 Teacher, so you playing a turn 2 Teacher is not likely to get you any free wins or easier games by connecting and putting weights on the opponent, because all good decks at this point should have a redundancy of answers to a turn 2 teacher even on the draw, so that you have to get really, really lucky for your teacher to actually connect, and then you just don't get enough out of the high roll for the downside of having a 2-cost 3/3 in the deck in most other scenarios. And yeah, after jumping with the Scribe on the opposing teacher, you usually can drop a unit, a 3-drop that then stalls out the teacher. So that's basically the other way to deal with teacher. You jump and then play blockers. So yeah, that also explains Temple Scribe. Temple Scribe and Marshal are both also very good against aggressive decks, mainly Skycrag. The Skycrag matchup is pretty good, but it is important to not fall too far behind and get run over, and these two make sure that you get to the point where you can lock them up. I lost like one game to Skycrag so far, where they had a really good draw and I had a slow draw and was on the draw. And that was when I still had Vanquishes. If I would have had Marshal there, I might have even had a chance to win that game. I think I even had a Vanquish in hand that didn't do anything in the game that I lost. And yeah, Marshal also silencing, say, Dusk Raider to deny them Berserk, or yeah, efficiently trading with their Brigands and Champions is also great. Then we have 3 Voice of the Speaker. This is part of the Vodacombo combo. Since yeah, you basically want a voice in play and then get your Vodacon with Merchant, then you just play Vodacon Temple Speaker and a Lingering Influence to kickstart your combo. But Speaker actually just does a bunch of nice stuff. She blocks all the random Grenadin tokens out of Braxis tokens and Canadins, which can be nice. She still can trade with the X1 1-drops in Skycrag, for example, so she still has some use there. Your power cards have Echo is actually really powerful, both with the power searchers here, as well as with just drawing natural power, making it much easier to have enough powers, hit all your power drops, and make sure you can fuel these Marshals and Ascendants and Parliaments and stuff like that. And yeah, it also provides us 3 extra cards for your Auralian Merchants, which is another nice bonus, the same way as Find a Way does. So yeah, Voice has actually been surprisingly good in the deck and made the deck quite consistent. Then we have Auralian Merchant. Just, yeah, great addition to the deck. Allows you to virtually have 4 Vodacon, which is 1 more than most Vodacon decks in the past had. They usually ran 3 Vodacon. So this deck virtually has 4, but doesn't draw into any Vodacons in the early game when they're just lackluster. So it can usually have Vodacon when it wants it, but doesn't draw into it when it's a bad card. So that's really nice, and of course provides a lot of utility. It lets you hit a turn 3 or 4 Worldbearer Behemoth to kickstart your ramping and yeah, empower power plays and stuff like that. The usual Stand Together and Sword of Unity, both Sword of Unity to just lock up your board, get back from behind, or get like raise flyers, or lock up the game against aggro, and Stand Together just as a cheap fast spell Aegis source to yeah, counter Harsh Roll, for example, since unlike with Sword of Unity where they can say Hailstorm and then Harsh Roll, with Stand Together you just never play Stand Together, always leave it open, and then when they Harsh Roll they just in response Stand Together, and then the Aegis eats the Harsh Roll. That's the big difference between Sword and Stand and why they are both necessary, because they do different things. This is more against mid-range and aggro, and this is mostly against control. Then we have a Wasp, just so our merchant provides removal, and this was the removal, like the card of choice for that slot for me, simply because it deals with Icaria, which can be annoying, and helps to interfere with the killer recursion of the Alessi decks as well, by just jumping in front of their killer Alessi that they rebought and just eat it. Where say a Carnosaur would be a lot clunkier, could still deal with Icaria after the fact, but means you take 5, 6, 7 damage, depending on how big the Icaria is, and then have to spend 6 power, and they might even have ways to interfere with it. Also, if they ever have a 10-10 Icaria from like the first Icaria, Scorpion Wasp can still deal with it and so on. So yeah, Wasp is a great utility card to deal with some annoying problems, basically. Especially big Aegis Icarias and Alessis and Wasp and Wandering Wisps and stuff. And yeah, the Behemoth for the consistency and the Vodacombo for the combo finish installs. And then we have for Siraf, not much explanation needed. She's just great in this deck, great early blocker, and later on a great win condition. And also pretty removal resilient, doesn't die to Vanquish, doesn't die to Torch, doesn't die to Annihilate, only dies to the occasional Rindra's Choice, which is not played a lot because Feln is not in the greatest spot, and yeah, like killer stuff and Suffocate. But not a lot of people play Suffocate, less people than should actually, like Suffocate's really good. But yeah, outside of people playing my killer list, you don't see a lot of Suffocates right now. And even then, you're not yeah, losing that much. It's still okay. Not great, but fine. And yeah, like I said, no enforcers, simply because Marshal is better. You don't want to play too many low impact interactive decks. This is more of a proactive power play kind of deck that just tries to only deal with the stuff that it absolutely has to and just overpower the rest, and it has been working pretty well. So yeah, no enforcers, as weird as that might seem. Then we have the 4 Sandstorm Titan, not much explanation needed, just Titan. Great card for this type of deck. 3 Marshal Ironthorn, card can be a bit clunky and a bit underpowered, so only 3, drawing multiples is usually not necessary and can clunk up your hand a bit. But you want 2 or 3 usually to make sure that you can ramp up and also can win in the combo by just ultimating and killing the opponent's board and stuff like that. Having the power plays with Ascendant. Behemoth into Ironthorn is also nice. Gets you quicker to Siraf activations and big parliaments. Still an all-around decent card, but 3 seems like a fine number. Then the remaining 3 Behemoth with 1 in the market. The go-to 5 power play. As soon as you hit 5 power, this is what you want to drop. And then we have the 4 Ascendants. Just one of the power plays. Advantage engines, especially with on 6 power dropping Ascendant, attacking with Behemoth, drawing a card, and playing a power to draw another card, drawing 2 cards a turn, or even if the Behemoth is already charged up, drawing more than that. Really nice synergy with Behemoth and Marshal Ironthorn usually. Also another way to combo with Vodacombo, because if you don't have voice of the speaker, another way to combo decently is having Ascendant in play and then playing Vodacombo and triggering it with a lingering influence to make sure you get enough draws to keep chaining. Then we have 3 Sword of Unity. These basically used to be I think 1 of these power sources and like 2 Vodacons or even 3 Vodacons at times. But the point was that Vodacon wasn't very necessary in most situations. So having multiple Vodacons main was usually just having kind of dead cards in my hand, and there weren't a lot of games where I even needed Vodacon in the first place to win. So yeah, I decided to try some other stuff and see how the deck does without it. And Sword of Unity seemed like a great card for the slot. It makes the aggro matchups more reliable and helps you lock up the game there to not risk losing these against the great draws of Skycrack. So you just usually stall as well as you can. On 6 power you drop a Sword of Unity. Sometimes you can even drop a Sword of Unity without Spellcraft on a Titan, because Skycrack is so weak at getting rid of a Titan, especially a 7-8 Titan with Lifesteal and Overwhelm is something they can usually not deal with. So you just drop it on the Titan, attack, gain 7, then have a 7-8 Endurance blocker, and that just ends the game. Against mid-range decks it's pretty decent, not as great, still kind of prevents them from silencing or killing some of your key units like these top-end guys and Siraf, and also the big lifesteal unit. Even if it can't attack, it usually also makes it so the opponent can't attack. It also helps you not lose to flying decks like these Horu flyer decks that run around sometimes. Played against something like that a couple times, Kamado testing something like that, and Sword is really great there, unless they have Pacifier, but yeah, we have Marshal now for Pacifier. Back then I only had like one Marshal in the market. And yeah, even against control this is pretty good, because you usually want to build like a small board that is not gonna make you lose the game if they harsh roll it. They're usually trying to get value out of the harsh roll and not want to just harsh roll like one real threat and like a bunch of dorks like mana guys. So plus with the ramp you sometimes can even sort of unity before they can harsh roll, especially on the play. And even if not, you can often set up a board with like 2 guys and just slap a sword on it, and that's a really rough beating for them. Especially if you maybe even have a merchant that got a backup stand from the market and then they can just never win. So the card has just been all around great in like all matchups. It's the weakest against mid-range because the unit with the sword is still usually not big enough to attack because the opponent just double blocks and you lose the unit, but it at least stalls the game and protects some of your critical units with the Aegis, allowing you to just prolong the game, and prolonging the game usually wins you the game in mid-range matchups too. So yeah, card is the unsung hero in the deck basically. I already was very impressed with Sword of Unity all the time from the market, kept constantly getting it and winning lots of games with it. So it seemed like a natural conclusion to just put Sword in the main and only have one Vodacombo in the market and leave it at that. And that has been working greatly. Yeah, then we have 4 Lingering Influence and 2 Find a Way and 25 Power as the power sources. I used to have 3 Seek Power instead of the Find a Ways and 1 other card for most of the time that I played the deck. But first of all, due to space concerns and wanting to fit everything right now, that didn't fit quite as well, and Find a Way is another great way to get extra value out of the merchants, or just have enough fodder for your Marshals and your Ascendants and your Parliaments and stuff, and getting high power counts for Siraf and all that stuff. Also a way to trigger Vodacombo's combo on 9, just play Vodacombo and Find a Way. Yeah, it also gives you absurd amounts of power with a voice out, and yeah, just provides an early free card to put away with Merchant without giving up any other cards you might need. So, and yeah, to Find a Way replacing 3 Seek should be fine, especially with 8 ramp units and the Scribes and 3 voices. So that this should be fine, also because we have 8 Scout to also help. Since in the past basically most Vodacombo decks didn't have the Initiate, didn't have the Merchant ramp, and didn't have Seek powers that Scout, and didn't have Crest of Progress. So we have 8 Scout more and 4 to 8 ramp more than old Vodacombo decks used to have. So that should make up for the 1 Find a Way more that most old Vodacombo decks usually had, or like a 26 power like my old Big Combrei deck. So yeah, and then we have 4 Great Parliament, just another way to just take advantage of all the power and also not lose in the air, or start winning in the air in a stall and stuff like that. Not much to say here. And yeah, the power is slightly slanted towards time because of Initiate, Temple Scribe, and also Waystone and Behemoth, and the deck not needing a whole lot of justice. It's basically only double justice for Marshal and Sword and triple justice for Vodacombo out of the market. Plus the influences are justice sources, so we still technically have 16-20 justice sources plus the Find a Ways. I had 1 banner in the market in the beginning when I was heavy Vodacombo, not because I think it's needed for the power base, but because it had great synergy with a voice into merchant, getting banner can be great. And also but the main reason was basically so that if you drop a Vodacombo and you have a merchant, your merchant can also function as a way to start your combo, because merchant getting the banner out of the market with Vodacombo in play does the same as Find a Way or Lingering Influence. But yeah, the slot wasn't that worth it now that we are less combo focused, even less so. Also makes the influence in the main deck slightly worse and locks up a market slot, which I really wanted to be some kind of answer, since that was what the market was missing, and I found myself in scenarios where I just wished I had a way to get something to interact from the market to make sure to not potentially lose to certain cards. Okay, that was a lot to talk about. I think that covers all the potential cards and options for the deck. Oh, I guess Awakened Student is another card to talk about. The main problem with Student is, I think Student is overall a lot better in the deck than Teacher, simply because it grows massively with Behemoth, with Marshal, with Voice. Just a great 2-drop that is a massive threat on its own, and I liked it a lot in these types of decks in the past without Harsh Rule. So the main problem with Student, however, is that on the draw, where it matters most, Student is awful against opposing teachers. You play it, and then you either jump, or they even just kill it 1-for-1 and hit you with the teacher, the same way as I mentioned with your own teacher, except that it's a lot worse than your own teacher. And that leads to the other point. In my old Big Combrei deck, I was running Student over Temple Scribe. Now that Teacher exists, I don't really want to risk playing the overall better card that is worse against Teacher, because Teacher completely shuts down this deck so hard. There's so many things in this deck that are negatively affected by Teacher that I really don't want to be hit by Teacher. That I think you can't really cut Scribe for Student, simply because Scribe is a decent way to jump block Teacher to get to your bigger blockers, while Student would just be throwing away a card to do that. But I could be wrong, and maybe the deck, especially now with the Desert Marshals and the Initiates and the Voice of the Speakers being jump blockers also, if it is absolutely necessary, that Student is fine, and maybe the Temple Scribes should be Awakened Students just like in the past, although Awakened Student is a much worse draw later, where Temple Scribe just cycles you and tries you to find your action when you're in a situation where you need that. But yeah, that's the one change that I could see, just cutting the Scribes for Students potentially, but I don't feel comfortable doing that just yet, especially because also with the 1 power source less that I shaved, like I mentioned, having Scribe also helps there, smooth out your draws and hit your power drops and make sure you're not getting stunted there. And Scribe, ironically, is kind of actually a bit better against aggro, especially on the draw, because it trades for free with their 1-drops, while playing a Student on the draw against aggro. Having to trade with their 1-drops is really awkward. Having to take another attack and giving them potentially another Warcry from an Oni is also awkward. Just to play a power next turn, making it a 3-3, and then them just blowing it up with a Torch or Permafrost or whatever anyway, and then you gained nothing, while with a Scribe this scenario plays out a lot better for you. But yeah, keep in mind, if you want to try something, the first thing I could see trying is in fact Student over Scribe, just in my old Big Combrei deck, and especially with the sort of Unity now, that might be worth it, because that gives the deck a bit more of a mid-rangey, outsized game plan, where Student is really, really good, and also another nice payoff for all the power from Voice and stuff. But yeah, keep an eye on the Teacher situation. That's the real danger, basically. But maybe it's fine at this point. Marshal should do a lot there. I haven't really played much with Marshal yet on that front. Okay, that's the deck list. There was a lot to talk about. Hope you guys are still with me and listen to all of it. And now understand the ins and outs of the deck and the card choices. And yeah, let's do some battle and see if we can maybe get to rank 3 or even 2 again. And yeah, I will keep trying to go for rank 1 probably after the video. Okay, so that's it for the deck list. See you in a moment for game number 1.